Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. All right, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. I got a real special guest here today. We've known each other, we just said, probably been 20 years or so, right, Mike?
I think so.
Yeah, it's crazy. Time flies. I don't know if I like that or not, but yeah, welcome Mike Lessiter from Lessiter Publications. So yeah, give us a background on who you are and how long you've been in the industry and all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be on this, and honored to be one of your subjects here. I'm usually on the other side, so this will be
Right.
fun. Yeah, I'm the president of Lessiter Media. We're a small family-run ag publisher located in Brookfield, Wisconsin, just west of Milwaukee. And I'm a lifelong journalist type. Right outside of college, I went to Chicago and wrote about metal engineering, metal casting, for the first 12 years of my career. And then my father, who was a lifelong ag journalist, I had a small company here in Milwaukee. And after about 12 years down there, I answered the call to come back to the family business. And we're an ag publisher through and through. That's what we do. We focus on niches. So we're not competing with the big boys per se, but our niches are farm machinery. That includes manufacturers and dealers and other related agribusiness. Conservation agriculture, which we have 3 titles in no tillage, strip tillage, and cover crops. And then thirdly, we have a equine division here at the company. So I came back 21 years ago and have been working here ever since. And my dad still comes in a couple days a week, and it was a privilege and an honor to work with him. Alongside him, we've had some ups and downs, but that's a blessing I've been given, is to work with my father.
Yeah, I bet. It's sort of the, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. It's sort of the common theme here with a lot of my audience as well, is the family connections and the family histories that date, some of them date back, a really long time. So when you were in college, doing your studies, was this something you knew you were going to do, or did it kind of hit you later in life, or what's that story like?
It hit me later. I went to journalism school at the University of Wisconsin, and I intended to either write for Sports Illustrated or Time Magazine, one of those two.
Nice.
When I graduated in 91, it was a very tough time. But not as tough as it is now for journalism grads, but it was a tough go. And I applied to a job in the Chicago Tribune and moved to Chicago. And it's there where I figured out that business writing was really a passion that I hadn't realized as of yet. And so I went there thinking, I'll do this for a little while, build my resume, figure out what's next. And Dave Kanicki, who you also know, was
Sure.
my boss down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got some really good mentoring, and a couple-year plan turned into 12 years. And while I was down there working in a totally different field, I was realizing what my dad had been doing all that time, going deep with a small niche, not being an outsider, but within the circle. And I found that real satisfying. I didn't want to leave that.
Why business writing? What was it that struck you where you were like, hey, I like doing this? And you have a sports passion. I know that because we'll talk about our friendly wager that we make every year, but yeah, what was the switch to business for you?
I think the key is that, and my dad helped reveal this over time. His asking questions. He wasn't a guy who'd like tell you how to think, but I realized that in this world, in what we call service journalism or business journalism, we can help impact someone's life. And it's not reading a box score or a profile on a coach or analysis of a game, but what we were getting up every morning to do was try to give information that could be turned into knowledge that someone could use to farm more acres, farm better, have more time for the family, run a more profitable farm machinery dealership. And that got to once that hook got into me, I found real purpose in
Yeah.
that. Not general interest writing or reading, but information you do something with.
Yeah. And your dad is the one that started the company. Is that accurate? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Got it.
yeah. He moved the family to Milwaukee when I was 3 to be the first editor of No Till Farmer, and that was run by a different publisher. But he was the only one who ever had the editor job.
Okay.
9 years later, that publisher was ready to get out of it. He and my mom bought the business in 1981. They bought 2 magazines and hung out their own shingle.
Nice. So when I got in the industry, which was about 20 years or so ago, I was one of those guys that had no agriculture background. I had never really been on a farm. I didn't understand all the ins and outs and how that worked. And then I always enjoyed farming. My mom worked at an ag company, a big one called, well, Pioneer. Everybody knows
Oh yeah,
Pioneer. So I was kind
we
of
know that.
going to farm. Yeah, yeah. I was going to farm shows as a kid and all that stuff, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. But when you get engulfed into this industry, it's totally different. Coming from a guy that didn't know anything, I'm assuming, was that you as well? You didn't grow up on a farm, and you just kind of had to learn as you went. And
Yeah, my dad was the first in 7 generations to leave the farm. I was the first born off of it. So
okay,
as a kid, my exposure was summers at grandma and grandpa's house, in
yep,
Michigan, a long way away. So I only got over there a week of summer. So
yeah. And now you've gone from that to, I'll give you, I think this is true. It's not just me blowing smoke, but Lessiter Publications is by far the most trusted agricultural publication for specifically equipment that there is. And I think you have a huge credit for that, Mike, and growing it and taking it to where it is today. Talk about that journey from when you started to kind of your vision on, did you have any idea that it would become what it is today, or what's your thought process there?
that's a great question. First off, thank you for those words.
Of
They're
course.
they're humbling, and we try to do that. That's our goal. We will mess up sometimes, but that's what we're after. The interesting thing about farm equipment, you may not know this because I think it may have been right before you joined, is I was back here my first year in the business. This would have been 2003, and we were a small company. I think it was 9 employees when I got here,
Wow.
and my dad had his hand in everything. It was very much a benevolent dictator, might be the right word.
Yeah.
But so I came in. I'm on my presence is supposed to be a change agent. We're going to gear up for growth. We're going to go buy some properties. We're going to make this thing hum, start getting profitable on some of these properties that aren't. And that was a tough time because I was here and there weren't exactly other employees rallying for the changes that I wanted to bring.
I
Right.
bet. I
So it
bet.
was uncomfortable there for a year, but we had a chance to buy a publication called Farm Equipment that was published down the road here. And that publisher had decided to shut its doors. They were going to fold it up. They had other things that they wanted to do, and they hadn't tried to sell it. We caught wind that it was going to be put on the market, or no, that there was going to be shuttered. And one of my mentors and a good friend of my dad's too got in our face and said, "You got to look at this thing. This is crazy. You guys got to do it." And at first, we were like, "We got our hands full with all kinds of other stuff. We don't have time for this." And he just kept showing up. And he
Yeah.
said, "Go look." And so my dad and I took a drive out, called on some dealers on the way, sat down with their sales people, and decided to make an offer for this thing. And so we acquired Farm Equipment, what became Ag Equipment Intelligence, and Farm Innovations in late June of 2004. And so that was our entrance into the machinery world. Prior to
Wow.
that, we didn't have any holdings in that segment.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely a niche industry, and I think it was one colleague that I talked to. Well, it was actually Nick Jensen, a guy you and I both know, but
Oh yeah,
he had said the farm industry or the farm equipment industry is a very niche but mighty organization. I was like, that always resonated with me. I'm like, it's so true.
Yeah,
It is
it's well
it
said.
is very niche, which makes kind of what you and I both do now a little bit interesting because we're kind of going through a slow time. And it's those times that are challenging when you're kind of in an industry that's very niche. Uh, but it's also very mighty when it comes to knowing that network and having those people around us to kind of it's almost like we gather together and help each other out in a strange way. Have you
Yeah,
felt that?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. In fact, you know, we got this thing. It was wounded. That's why they were shuttering it, right? It was
Of,
wounded.
of course.
But I went to that first FEMA meeting and didn't know. I didn't know a soul.
Yeah.
Myself and our newly hired salesman went, and I felt like the FEMA crowd. Well, they were sizing us up. Who's this player, or that we hear this as part of that no-till thing. And Frank's been telling everyone they don't need any equipment for the last 20 years.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the FEMA crowd, the farm equipment manufacturers crowd, really I felt wanted us to succeed, and that they understood that a well-informed dealer organization would be good for the entire industry, including the short line equipment business. And what you just said, we had some people pulling for us, and I won't forget.
Yeah.
You don't forget those things.
No, you don't. There's a good bunch of people in this network, and I think it's at a point now where it's the old adage, if you're not growing, you're kind of dying. So I think there is at a point where FEMA is looking to scale and is looking to grow and try to find ways to do that. And, clearly that's where you come in as the media arm. And I'm guessing things have changed quite significantly since when was that? You said that was 2004 to
Yeah, we bought
today?
it in
Yeah.
2004. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. Like, when you first started, it was this, and to today, obviously, the way we all look at media is totally different. Did you envision some of those things coming, or how do you even prepare for that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have called the digital age at
Yeah.
that time. It's what it turned into. But what we aimed to do was very core to it. We I came back after we acquired it. I spent a day with the publisher. They gave me 8 hours. So however we want to do the day is yours. It's part of the deal. I really studied what they were telling me, and I got good advice from them. And we put together a one-page mission document that I wrote for my dad to fill him in on what was going on, but also the rest of the staff here who didn't know what we had just acquired. In fact, some initial points were, why did you acquire this thing? The thing looks wounded. It looks like it's a pamphlet. It's 32 pages. Is there any future in this? But we did do what we outlined to do, and it was to call the shots like we saw them. We didn't, while the mainline manufacturers are very important in the dealer business, we weren't afraid to call it like we saw it, or more importantly, let the dealers call it like they see it. And there was a lot of pressure. There was, the dealer, the short line purity effort in dealers was going on. Very fast consolidation. Some of it at times was felt by the dealers as heavy handed. And we reported on it. We said, hey, if something's affecting the dealers out there, we are going to report it. We're not going to look the other way. We're not going to be beholden to Case IH, John Deere, AGCO, New Holland for advertising dollars. It's not who we are or what our niche in this world is. And it was different. I think that was a different approach. And maybe we only arrived at because we were new to this market. The Equipment Dealer magazine and Implement Tractor were around a long time, and maybe thought that they had tried everything that was to be tried, and we brought new eyes to it, and the
Sure.
market responded.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's good to provide this organization and the FEMA organization, the shortliners, a voice. And sometimes it can be silenced by the big boys. And not that the big boys don't play a major role. Clearly they do. But yeah, bringing a voice to these guys, I think is something that's pretty valuable, and especially today. Uh, how do you do all your research, by the way? I just thought of this question, but I'm guessing a large chunk of your time is spent researching and trying to forecast and trying to figure out where things are going. I mean, for those that haven't read a farm equipment magazine or one of your other publications, it's chucked full of information. I mean, it's a go-to source. Where's all that coming from?
Yeah, we're blessed here in that we have a really good network of advisors. We have dealers, and this is really, I think, when you have something special. We have dealers who will send us, will let us know what's happening in the market. So I've been on the receiving end of memos that have gone out there on different initiatives. We have advisory boards on both the manufacturer side and the dealer side who we bounce ideas off, try to make sure they keep us honest and directed. You're missing the point here. This is what the important thing is to cover in this article. And then on the ag equipment intelligence side, which is all market trends, we are very tied in with the analysts of the business, and we have correspondents all over the globe who, when something happens, they let us know about it right away, and we get it into our monthly ag equipment intelligence newsletter.
Yeah, it's the talk of it's the talk of the time. I mean, there's tariffs right now. There's AI. Everybody's talking about those two things.
Mm-hmm.
There's commodity. If you stick to just agriculture, there's tariffs, commodity prices, and what's going on with the dealer right now.
Yep.
Everybody knows there's chucked full of inventory, and the age old, $1 million question, whatever you want to say, is, well, when is this going to recover, and when is it going to, maybe not recover, but when are we going to start seeing a recovery? I don't think anybody can answer that, but
Right.
it's going to information that you're putting out there on where we can all get intelligent about it to kind of play off the name of your publication and, speak in different networks that we're in and be intelligent about it. So, uh,
And sometimes, Joe, it's not the answer that's as important as what questions to ask. Right.
yeah, yeah, good point. Well, what do you mean by that, though?
Well, you're the question that you raised. I can't give you the answer
Yeah,
to,
right.
but I can through our network, and Kim and I are working on this all the time and doing our best with it, is figuring out what questions ought to be asked. And it's not just a question we would ask a source, but what a dealer or a manufacturer, what are the questions that they ought to be asking about what the next 90 days looks like, or next 120 days were. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to keep track of right now in this
Oh my
world.
gosh, it's such a moving part. And for the tariffs alone, it's hard to even understand what's going to happen today. I was talking to a guy earlier, and Trump just dropped some tariff news on Europe, for instance, yesterday. So it's a forever evolving thing, whatever side of the fence you're on. So yeah, you just got to stay informed and find the people and the information to go to. So kudos for
Like
that for
you,
you guys.
our relationship over the years, and we share some common ground here, because we both went through all the chairs in the farm equipment manufacturers
Yeah.
supplier board, and then both served up on the regular board as well. But there are a lot of times, Joe, I was calling you to find out what you were hearing, in your travels, what other manufacturers were telling you about the business, and that was all listening and trying to figure out where to go next, where our next play is going to be out there for this market.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I think part of the appeal to FEMA for me is that initial conversation with everybody about what are you seeing, what trends are you looking at, what's your go-to source, who do you look at to see when things are recovering or when the market is good. And yeah, we can all kind of utilize each other, and I love that aspect of FEMA. I think it's priceless,
Yeah.
absolutely priceless. We'll talk a little bit about media and just it's a big buzzword right now too. I was talking to a guy earlier about kind of Google Analytics and all the things that we should look at, especially social media and how to build a brand and how to build a website and all those things. What role does Lessiter publication play in that, in your opinion? On if I'm a company and I want to build my name up and build my brand, and I go, Mike, help me out. What's your
Mhm.
play there?
Okay, that's a good question. I think about that one a little bit
Yeah.
because in essence, our business we're going to be about content.
Right.
That's every company can choose to hang their hat on something. In the media world, it might for one, it might be the content piece. Another, it might be distribution only. Could have the best distribution list in the world. Might be sales, and some organizations can sell their way through any problem. It seems. But we at our core, it's run by my dad and I are both journalism majors. We're content people at our core. Um, that said, we want to have a presence in every medium out there. We don't want to be defined by the media. That's why we branded ourselves 10 years ago as Lessiter Media instead of Lessiter Publications. So we have the in-person event that we do. We run numerous conferences in person a year. We have a virtual summit that we do on the cover crop world, which is coming up here actually. And then we have your standard print magazines, which this market thankfully still values that to a large degree. As they farmers who are leaning in and coming in at we have stories of guys who come in at lunch and can't go back out to the field until they finish their no-till farming. We have some fun
Nice.
stories like that.
Nice.
But our digital component is we've invested a lot of money there too. We have daily email newsletters for almost every brand that we have, so that people can be up on the latest news or commentary from. That's what I love most when someone makes a comment about the news, which then triggers us how to think about these things. This is what a farmer or a machinery dealer is thinking about this subject. And of course, we have video and podcasts like you're doing now, which I think is great. I'm happy to see you doing this, and you're bringing a new perspective that I'm not seeing filled right now.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
kudos to you to seeing the void and pursuing it.
Yeah, it's been fun too, man. I mean, it's rejuvenated me, and it's fun to have conversations with people like you, and specifically pick your brain on. And one thing I maybe forgot to ask before was, yeah, you have Lesser Media, but you're also running a business. At some point in time in your journey, you had to shift from, okay, I'm going to be a journalism guy and provide content and do as much as I can, which you do a great job of that. But you also now, okay, I've got to run a business. So when did that take place for you along your 20 years? Do you remember it specifically, or was it natural? Or?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's a great question too because it also impacted that rough year I mentioned to you when I first got back here. Where I got it was when I was in Chicago and working for Dave Kanicki at the Foundry Association. I was put in charge of the magazine at a very very young age. Prior to me, there had only been three publishers in the 100-year history. I was
Wow.
the youngest by a long shot, and the board told me they expected me to run this business, and a board of directors answered to because it was an association. There was executives in the foundry industry, and there was an expectation that this wasn't just a communication vehicle; it was the primary revenue generator for the association. I damn well better do my job. And
Damn. Wow.
I took it to heart and realized that you could, despite some thought out there that you can do both. You can do the proper job in service journalism and do it at a profit that allows you to reinvest in the business.
Right.
And for me, that was key when I got here. It was clear that editorial was our thing. Like I didn't have to figure out what our thing was, but I did have to change some minds about uh, the ability to do both. And we were not profitable at that time. And
Yeah.
so it took some doing, and it freed my father up to do what he did best. And but yeah, I do believe it's not they're not mutually exclusive terms. You can do a good job for your readership, for your advertisers, and be able to reinvest in the business at the same time.
Yeah, and you've mentioned Dave a couple of times, but there's Kim Schmidt, there's Darren, there's some other folks within, your organization. Clearly surrounding yourself with good people is kind of forefront on your mind. Talk
Well,
about that a little bit on how you find them, how you keep them, all that good stuff.
yeah, this is the greatest staff I've ever
Yeah.
had, and we you have to be able to reinvest to keep those people, right? I think Dave had a big doing, in getting going. He brought Kim in years and years ago, and then his whole time was he was training his replacement with Kim.
Yeah.
She was brought in with that in mind. That was set on her interview day. And Darren was another one we pulled from the industry. He was working on the manufacturing side and had a real passion for the industry. Noah Newman, who runs our broadcast, who you've probably seen, he was a sports anchor, and we had an opportunity to get him involved, and he's become a very fine ag man.
Yeah.
He's at all the events. He's doing our broadcast called the Conservation Ag Updates. McCain Vogel, also on our ag division job. Dahmerstein was in our Boomerang Club. He worked on farm equipment, no-till farmer, rural lifestyle dealer. His wife moved to Oklahoma. We kept him on for a time, and then he tested the waters a few years ago, but asked to come back again. And now he's our lead content man, working remotely from Oklahoma on our no-till farmer property. So I'm
Yeah.
probably leaving a lot of people out, but this is an outstanding staff we have here.
Yeah, definitely great people. And you guys do something maybe that's a little bit unique. I mean, clearly you mentioned FEMA, and FEMA you can't just dabble in. You've got to show up time in, time out. Similar to that of some other events that we go to, but you guys have gone all in with both feet, and you show up, and I think you make it a point to do that. Is that a strategy that you have, or is that just it's ingrained in everybody at this point in time? Like, we need to be at these places.
Yeah, yeah, that's in FEMA's our number one.
Yeah.
We're very close with FEMA, the dealer association. We'll have 3 people at Commodity Classic next week. I think we had 6 people in Louisville and 2 in Tulare.
Right.
We have to do our job. We have to be out there. We can't be behind our desk, learning, networking, talking to guys like you about what you're seeing out there. But FEMA is also a lot of fun. I have some of my best friends came out of the FEMA board work, and
Yeah.
guys like you, and wagering on sport games all year long, like
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a good segue. Let's get into it. So, unfortunately, your one flaw is that you're a Wisconsin Badger fan. I won't knock you for it, but I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan. I think this is the first time I've said this on this podcast, but I am, and it's tough. It's tough being a Hawkeye fan at times.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel for you.
I know, man. It's not. It's not easy, but there are some years when we get the better half of you. But our traditional bet here has always been it's typically just a football game, but we always bet, and I don't want to get this wrong, but it's Iowa wins. You have to send me no wait, if Iowa wins, yeah, you send me a Wisconsin shirt for my kids.
Yes.
Is that how that works? Is that what we're
Yep.
doing? Yeah.
That's how you and I were doing
Yeah.
it.
Why we did it that way? So my daughter has been sleeping in Wisconsin Badger shirts for the past 15 years. Everyone's like, "Why'd you buy her a Wisconsin shirt?" I'm like, no, you don't understand.
You're classing her up.
Yeah, I'm classing her up, getting her into the red. And Wisconsin wins. I send you a Hawkeye shirt. Normally, we take a picture of each other's kids with the shirts on, and it's our way of spreading the love back and forth a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think all 3 of my kids, because of the way this works out, were wearing Iowa gear to
Nice.
school, and then it prompts a story, right? Some bully's going to corner my kid because he's wearing a Hawkeye shirt. He goes, no, my dad won a bet. That's what.
Yeah, you don't understand. This is actually a winning bet. Yeah.
I think you and I did. I know I did this with Craig Hardhorn. I was thinking I did it with you too. We bet some sausage and cheese or cheese curds a couple
Oh,
times.
that's right. Yeah, always the see, that's the thing about Iowa. We're not really known for much here except for pigs and corn and all that good stuff. You guys have cheese and there's the spotted cow beer that everybody wants to get when they go to
Yeah,
Wisconsin. And yeah, I'm trying to think what we can think of something for this next go round.
yeah.
I don't know what it'll be.
Last time I had to pay up, I brought a shirt to FEMA for you to wear in the board meeting, and you never put it on.
You know, I have a certain image to uphold, Mike.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, before we go, you also talked to a lot of leaders in this space, and you've told the story of a lot of companies. Um, do you have any favorite? I mean, from the Landalls to the Kinseys to all these awesome historical stories that I think are just, I think, and a lot of people think are super interesting. Do you have any favorites that you've done through the
oh
years,
yeah.
or am I putting you on the spot? Or
No, I love the topic, and I think the fact that my own parents barely made it out of the '80s with business enterprises has locked me into what some of our guys like you just mentioned,
yeah,
what they did against all odds, what Don Landau did with a welder at age 18, and what he turned that business in. How John Kinzenbaugh fought up against John Deere in a horrendous lawsuit and came out on the other side, and has affected that entire Williamsburg community. I mean, think of that. If he never got that, the world, the Iowa landscape is different on a number of levels.
right. It's amazing. You're so spot on.
Roy Applequist, whose dad was in the foundry and machine shop business and sold it out. And Roy suddenly has to figure out what to do with his life, and went out and talked to some farmers, came back and designed a grain drill and built an enormous company that was great for the industry, the supply side, the community there in rural Kansas, and ultimately sold it to Kubota, who's keeping it going. And just these are some of the, I think, are great American success stories, not necessarily just American ag success stories, but great American legends.
Yeah.
And that's why we started the Hall of Fame project that we did a couple of years ago. But we need to capture those stories while they can still be told.
And it's only a generation ago. We're not talking that long ago, really. And, we talked earlier when we first got on here about how fast time goes by, and it does. It zips past. We were just saying, if there's a picture of you and I 20 years ago, we're going to look pretty damn different. I can guarantee you that. I
Yeah,
might have had hair. I can't remember, but
you
I think I
did.
did.
You
Yeah, I think
did.
I did. Oh man, those were some bad years when I was trying to hang on for that. But
I will say you've aged better than I
well, thank you. I don't know about whatever, man. You've aged fine. You look great. I don't know about me. I got not a speck of hair, and I'm grayer than gray can get, but it is what it is. But yeah, a generation ago. This is not that long. So what's going to happen in a generation from us? I mean, the world is moving at a supersonic speed right now, and I guess hold on and see. But telling the stories of the past is something I think is super important to hold on to because there's so many lessons we can learn from that.
Yeah, and that's the key, I think, is that sometimes get lost with a younger generation who thinks about history and those stories possibly as relics of the past, right? Well, something that got to me here, and I had actually someone else tell me this, is that these stories are important to tell because it shows how change can still be possible, even in a well entrenched traditional world like farming. And there was a writer for Forbes magazine who is fond of reporting on no-till, and he brought this to our attention. No-till it's been around only about 60 years, and he said that story of the change into no-till agriculture needs to be told because it shows how change is still possible. And 60 years ago, it was it was very maverick to farm without plowing the soil, and that was because that's the way Dad did it, Granddad did it. And, you know, these changes do come in, but a lot of things have to line up for them to take root and go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought his observation was interesting. That's a reason to know the there's value in knowing the past to figure out how to take the next step into the future.
Yeah, because these men and women made mistakes. They lived it. They grinded it out. They were in the trenches, and those are such valuable lessons to learn to either not follow their footsteps or my gosh, this is the way. Follow this way. And yeah, I mean you're spot on. There's practices that no one ever would have thought of would be relevant today that there's a lot of farmers out there saying, "Yep, I'm going for this." And I think with the advancement of technology, and I had a guy from Syngenta on earlier yesterday, or no, this would have been last week, but what they're doing at Syngenta on the agronomics of things and AI and it's mind blowing. It's
Yeah,
absolutely mind blowing. It's really cool stuff. And I don't know. Farmers are the ones that are on the forefront of that technology. We all think it's something else, but it's really not. Those men and women are out there, pardon the pun, but plowing the way for the rest of us, and thank God for it. And you're the one highlighting it.
that ag tech. When I came out of school, early '90s, ag was not considered a place to lock down and make a career out of.
Yeah.
And this ag technology that's coming in with the traits and the robotics and the precision world, this has really been exciting, and it's bringing people are wanting to get into the ag industry as a result of this, and it's just awesome. I think about like this autonomy picture
Yeah.
that's coming in. I think about what it must have been like for my grandfather, even my dad to some extent, when the tractors started showing up on the farm. Like
Yep.
this was a significant thing. My grandfather was farming with horses. He had two draft horses that he was farming with, and
Right. I
the
know.
tractors showed up in the early '50s, and life as we knew it was different. And I see a really exciting picture ahead here.
Oh, me too. And thank God we embraced that when we did, or otherwise we'd still be riding behind a horse, plowing up a field. And you still need people. That's the big buzzword now too, is AI is going to take over people and relationships. I am not a believer in that at all whatsoever. I mean, the horse-drawn carriage or the horse plow evolved into a tractor, which will evolve into probably an autonomous tractor. And thank God for those evolutions because we're just allowing ourselves almost to interact with each other more and just expedite 10x our human capabilities, and so the future is super exciting in this industry. We just got to get through this slug and this slump and it will happen.
Yeah.
It's not far off. And there's a lot of people talking about tomorrow versus the past, which I think is
Mhm.
definitely a good thing.
Right. Right.
Well, man, one of the things I like to end with here too is what does Mike Lessiter do to get away from the grind? And we're living busy lives now, and it's always on the go. And you're doing a bunch of traveling. What's your getaway? What's your hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Hmm. That's a tough one. I'm a big movie guy.
Okay,
I go to the film festival here in Milwaukee, which I think is one of America's best. It's every spring. So I watch a lot of movies. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
nice,
Recently, taken up pheasant hunting,
nice.
which has been fun, but yeah, nothing real exciting.
What's your movie genre? Do you have a favorite director? Or do you have a favorite? Where you at?
I'm a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I I'll give you a idea of what I do. There's a podcast out there called The Rewatchables.
Oh yeah, I love that
You know those
podcast.
guys?
I love it. Yeah,
So
yeah.
those guys are our age. They sit around. Well, I shouldn't put you in my age
I'm getting there,
group.
buddy. Yeah.
They're in our area, and they just sit around and BS about a movie that came out 20 or 30 years ago. And I often play this podcast while I'm walking the dog or I'm at the gym or something. I instantly need to watch the movie when I'm done with that podcast. Like,
And it's movies that we all know. It's like Top Gun or some maybe a little bit more obscure like Ghost or some of these weird, these movies that we've all seen. The Karate Kid, I think they've done a
yeah,
rewatchable on. Yeah, I have two buddies that they're probably going to listen to this too. So Mike Parsh and Tim Dunn, little shout out to you boys. They are the rewatchables of my friend group.
oh,
They know who won the Oscar in 1987 and all this stuff. And Yeah, that's a fun podcast for sure. I
Yeah,
love that one. Hopefully
yeah,
they'll give us some residuals for bringing them up, right?
yeah. And a little known fact, I went back to film school a few years ago when I was, and you know about this project when we were doing that How We Did It video
Yeah,
series.
yeah,
Um, I had been percolating this idea for years, and I said I need some help. I went back and I took a class at UW Milwaukee in documentary production. I was the oldest in the class by more than 40 years, 35 years maybe,
yeah.
and that was to set up for that How We Did It video docu-series, we call it, and telling stories like some of the guys you mentioned, like Sauter and Landau and Kinzenbaugh and
Yeah,
Ward McConnell, all those guys. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll leave with I'll probably get some flack for this, but I think the best movie ever made. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here. This is the best movie ever made. Directing, acting, the music, the cinematography, all of this. It sounds like I know what I'm talking about now, which I don't, but is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Tarantino. I
yeah,
think that's the most perfect movie ever made. And I've heard that it's like the last movie he's going to make. I think he says that to generate buzz, but anyway, I'll leave with that. What do you have one? Go ahead.
Goodfellas and Shawshank Redemption
Okay.
are at the top of every list I've ever assembled.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Shawshank Redemption. That's a fantastic movie. And fun fact, my wife and I went on our honeymoon in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, where the
Awesome.
ending of that movie. Yeah, yeah. Fun fact. Anyway.
That's a famous, iconic line, with his note to him about, I hope that you can show up and like see my friend again. And
Yeah.
he walks up with the shoes over his shoulder.
Yeah, and the boat's sitting there. Isn't there like a
Yeah,
wooden boat on the beach? And yeah, yeah. Awesome, man. Well, listen, Mike, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for our friendship, number one. I'm looking forward to the potential partnerships here that we got coming up here too, and just staying in touch with you. And I know I'll see you here shortly, and we'll stay in touch through the years. And I'm just grateful for you to even show up here. So thank you very much. We got to do it again sometime.
yeah, right back at you. This was great fun, and I appreciate the invitation, Joe. I enjoyed this. It was a good time.
All right, man. Appreciate you. See you later. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.